Okay, so have you ever felt
Like what?
we're more connected than ever, but it's hard to
Yeah.
find those connections that are
That's
actually meaningful?
yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, get this.
Right.
A book from 1936 might actually have some answers for us.
Oh wow. 1936. That's
Yeah.
that's way back.
It's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh yeah, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, by Dale Carnegie.
Right.
It's a classic for a reason, right?
It is, and you know what the funny thing is?
I stat.
The basic principles of how people connect with each other,
Right.
those haven't actually changed that much.
Yeah.
But we're in this digital world, so we have to think about
Yeah.
applying them in new ways.
Yeah. So what's the big takeaway then? What makes this advice from, what was it, almost 100 years ago?
Yeah, almost 100 years ago.
Still relevant.
So I think it comes down to this idea of we're so focused on self-promotion online.
Likes and follows and
Right.
all that.
Likes and follows, exactly.
Yeah.
And we kind of forget about actual genuine connections.
Yeah, so it's more than just metrics.
Way more.
It's got to be about something else.
It's got to be about something deeper,
Hmm.
right? Think about it. Going viral for the wrong reasons, that might get you your 15 minutes of fame.
Right.
But it's fleeting.
It's empty.
It doesn't have that lasting impact. It's like empty calories versus a good meal, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So how do we make our interactions more, like you said, more like a nourishing meal?
Well, I think one of the things Carnegie talks about
Okay.
is even just small little things
Okay.
that make someone feel seen,
Yeah.
and that can go a long way.
That's so true.
Like, have you ever gotten like a handwritten note?
Oh my God.
Also as an email?
Yes, totally.
No.
Even recently, I got a thank you note after
Yeah.
a work thing.
Totally. And how did that make you feel?
It meant so much more than just like a quick email.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that personal touch.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like you're not just a number,
Yeah.
like you're an actual human
Exactly.
that
Oh,
someone
yes.
took the time for.
So we're saying it's the little things, but it's hard because online
Yeah.
we're missing that in-person
Right.
connection.
That face-to-face.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you show that through a screen, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's a scene in Up in the Air, the movie,
Okay.
and it's interesting because George Clooney's character,
Okay.
he's like a pro at
Okay.
delivering bad news to people in person.
Right. He had that down.
Yeah, but he's also kind of disconnected, you know?
So he had the mechanics, but not the heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we need to be careful of in this digital world, too.
Yeah.
It's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Totally. Yeah.
Like, even an emoji can change how a message is perceived. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever experienced that?
Oh my gosh, yes, definitely.
It's so easy to misinterpret things
Totally.
when you don't have that tone of voice
Yeah.
and all of that.
So we've got to be so mindful, I guess, of how we're communicating.
Totally.
Because it's so easy to
Yeah.
not be clear.
Yeah, and it's easy to hide behind that screen, too.
Yeah, so we've established that we need to focus on genuine connection and be aware of how we're communicating.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? Like, are there concrete steps?
Well, that's the beauty of this book.
Okay.
Carnegie actually gives us
Okay.
6 principles for making those kinds of connections.
All right, I'm ready. Let's hear it.
Okay, so principle number 1.
Okay, so principle number 1.
So this one is all about shifting your focus from yourself to others.
Okay.
Like, really being interested in their interests.
I feel like that's something that's so easy to say.
Oh, totally.
Harder to actually,
To practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially online, where it's all about, kind of curating your own.
Your own little world.
Yeah, look at me, look what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But think about it. When you meet someone and they're genuinely curious about you,
Right.
you're drawn to that.
It's so true. Yeah.
And it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, instead of just talking about yourself
Right.
or trying to impress them with your accomplishments,
Yeah.
ask them questions.
Be interested. Yeah.
Be interested.
Okay.
Like, imagine you're at a networking event
Okay.
and you stumble upon some shared interest with someone.
Yeah, like a book or something.
Yeah, like you both love the same podcast.
Totally.
Suddenly, the conversation,
It's so much better
it's way more engaging.
than just here's my business card.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding that common ground.
It's so smart.
Yeah, and it builds a connection.
It makes me think about this blogger I follow, actually.
Okay.
He asked his readers to share pictures of their workspaces.
Oh, I like that.
And it was just so cool,
Yeah.
just to see all these different setups.
Yeah, what it looks like.
Yeah, and he said it was amazing just to get this glimpse into, their lives a little bit,
That's awesome.
you know?
You created a shared experience
Yeah,
by being interested in
exactly.
what they were doing.
That's so cool. Okay.
Yeah.
What's number 2?
Okay, so this one might seem a little counterintuitive,
Okay.
but it's surrender the credit.
So wait, sweet, to be influential, I have to like
Give it away.
give it away,
Give credit to others,
even if I was a big part of it.
especially if you were a big part of it.
Okay, that's a tough one.
It is tough, but think about it.
Okay.
When someone freely acknowledges your contributions
Yeah.
and they're not trying to take all the credit themselves,
Yeah.
how does that make you feel?
I mean, it makes you feel good, right?
That feels good.
Respected. It builds trust, right? Totally. Like you're suddenly more likely to want to work with that person again.
Right, because you know they're going to be fair.
Exactly. They're going to have your back.
You're going to go the extra mile for them because they went the extra mile for you.
So it's about building those relationships for long term,
Totally.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long game.
Not just the immediate win.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's not about ego, it's about the bigger picture.
I like that. Okay. What's number 3?
All right, number 3 is engage with empathy.
That's a big one.
It's huge,
Yep.
and I think it's especially important these days.
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, online, it's so easy to forget that there's a real person
Yeah.
on the other side of the screen.
Totally.
Right.
It's like we're not always our best selves online.
It's like we put on armor sometimes,
Yes.
and we forget
Totally.
that the person on the other end has feelings too.
Yeah, it's easy to be like more
It's harsher.
Yeah, or just like snarky, even when you wouldn't be in person.
Totally. But even online,
Yeah.
people can sense
Okay.
when you're being genuine.
So it
It-
still comes through.
It does. When you're really trying to understand where they're coming from.
So how do you actually do that? Like practically?
Well, sometimes it's just about acknowledging their feeling, even if you don't agree with them.
So it's more about like seeing them, I guess,
Yeah.
than having to agree.
Exactly.
Okay, that's interesting.
It shows that you're listening
Yeah, it shows you care.
and you're trying to see the situation from their perspective.
Wow, that's a good one. Okay, so engage with empathy. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
What's next? What's number 4?
Okay, so number 4 is begin in a friendly way.
Okay.
It sounds simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
I mean, sometimes I'm not always super friendly when I first sit down to write an email,
oh, totally.
especially if it's like
If it's been a day.
a Monday morning
Oh, yeah.
and I've got like 50 emails to respond to.
But I think what Carnegie's getting at is
Okay.
that initial interaction, that tone, it really sets the stage.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right.
So even if you don't feel it, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily fake it, but
But be mindful of it.
be mindful.
Okay.
Think about it. When someone approaches you
Yeah.
with a smile
Yeah.
and they're open and positive,
Yeah. You immediately feel better.
you're more likely to let your guard down, right?
It's like that feeling of, what is it, psychological safety?
Yeah, exactly.
Where you feel comfortable enough to actually like be yourself,
Obviously.
share your ideas. And
We open to what they have to say.
yeah, I like that.
And that goes a long way in building those connections.
It's interesting he uses an example in the book from like law enforcement, which I would not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like, what does that have to do with anything? But basically there was this sheriff
Okay.
and he like totally changed how his department interacted with people.
Interesting.
Even people who had like broken the law, you know.
Yeah.
And he emphasized this, like treating everyone with respect.
Oh, wow.
Like as the foundation.
That's a really different approach.
Yeah, I mean, this is way back when,
Right.
but still, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
You know?
That's super interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so what's number 5?
Okay, so this one's a little more,
A little more out there.
well, can be a little scary for some people.
Okay.
It's share your journey.
Okay, so be vulnerable.
Be vulnerable, yeah.
That's hard, though, especially online, right?
It is. Everyone's trying to present
It's all
this
the
perfect
right.
image.
Filters and everything's perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you...
But think about it this way.
Okay.
When someone you admire
Yeah.
is willing to be open and honest
Yeah, like they're not perfect.
about their struggles,
Right.
doesn't that make you feel closer to them?
100%.
Like you can relate to them more.
You see them as human. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like, okay,
It's okay to not be perfect.
it's okay if I'm not perfect either
Yeah.
because we're all in this together.
I have definitely experienced that, actually.
Yeah, like once I kind of started letting people in a little more online, like
Yeah.
I was amazed at how many people,
We're like, me too.
yeah, like they were going through similar things or they had totally different experiences,
Right.
but it created this connection
Exactly.
that I don't think would have been there otherwise.
It's about building bridges instead of walls.
I love that. Okay, so share your journey, be vulnerable.
And then the last one
Last one, okay.
kind of brings us back to what we were talking about earlier
Okay.
with giving credit.
Okay.
This one is throw down a challenge.
Wait, so we went from surrendering credit to throwing down a challenge. Like,
Yeah, so it's not
what's the deal with that?
it's not about being competitive.
Okay.
It's about inspiring growth.
Interesting.
Right. Like we all want to learn and grow.
Yeah.
We want to be challenged to be our best selves.
Totally. Yeah.
And sometimes we need that little extra push.
Yeah, like accountability almost.
Exactly. So, instead of just like staying in your comfort zone all the time.
Right, which is easy to do.
Oh, totally.
Especially online, where it's like you can kind of curate everything.
Yeah, you can control everything.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there,
Okay.
challenge yourself, and maybe even challenge others.
How do you do that without being like annoying?
Well, I think it's all about the approach, right?
Okay.
Like maybe you're working on a project
Yeah.
and you're stuck.
Yeah.
Instead of just like struggling alone,
Right.
you could share that with your online community
Oh,
and
interesting.
be like, hey, has anyone ever dealt with this? What did you do?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Or maybe you're trying to learn a new skill.
Yeah.
Share your progress. Invite others to join you.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
It becomes less about competition and more about like a shared journey of growth.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
So those are your 6 principles.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about a lot today.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, from like the importance of just being a decent human and engaging with empathy
Right.
to being vulnerable, sharing your story.
Being interested in other people.
Yeah, which I think is huge. And that kind of goes back to that very first one.
Totally.
Be interested in other people.
Yeah. Be interested to be interesting.
So as we kind of wrap things up here,
Yeah.
what's like the one thing you want listeners to take away from this deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is that even in this digital world, human connection is everything.
It all comes back to that.
It all comes back to that.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the numbers and the algorithm.
Oh, wait, all the likes.
Yeah. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's about those real, genuine connections that make life meaningful.
It's about quality over quantity.
Exactly.
And it's about being intentional.
Yes, 100%.
Like, we can't just expect these things to magically happen.
Especially online.
We have to put in the effort.
You got to put in the work.
And it starts with us.
Yeah,
Right?
it does. Yeah.
So as you're scrolling through your feeds and liking photos and sending emails,
Yeah.
think about these 6 principles
I love that.
and see if you can, sprinkle a little bit of that Carnegie wisdom.
Yeah, 100 years later, it still holds up.
It really does. It's pretty amazing.
It's timeless.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
It was so fun chatting with you. And for everyone listening, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.